Let's pray. Gracious and loving God, we have read from your word a story as old as time and fond in our memory. Help us to hear it anew, to hear your story, and to be inspired by your word. Guide and direct this time of reflection, that the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts together will be acceptable in your sight. For you are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Amen. So, as I said, be honest with you, you all knew that, right? Nobody learned anything there except the kids that looked a little amazed, and that's good. But as for the rest of us, we can go a little further. And this account of the Magi, of the kings, coming to, and it's vague as to where. We read this with some assumptions in our hearts and minds. Odds are that at this point they actually went back to Nazareth, right? Because Jesus was born in Bethlehem because of the census. They go, boy, I'm really tinny and echoing today.
Yes,
yeah. Can you take down my game just a little bit? I'm going to try to. Not that, I expect Raul to know that. Excuse me. So, Jesus is born in Bethlehem, but depending on how you read and which story you're reading, some fascinating things happen. Did you know that in Luke, Joseph is a Nazarene at the beginning? But in Matthew, it's vague. It's almost as if he was already there. The familiar story when Quirinius was governor of Syria, and you know that, you heard it at Christmas, that one? Mm-hmm. You know that story? That one talks about Joseph going from Nazareth to Bethlehem. Matthew leaves that out. But then Matthew takes them to Nazareth after the flight to Egypt. Why did they fly to Egypt? Anybody remember? That's right, to avoid Herod. Because Herod was threatened because he heard king and went, wait a minute, that's my gig. They're not going to have any of that. And the timelines that I was talking about with the kids come from the fact that Herod determined the time of birth based on what the wise men said at the star appearing, and then, stuff we don't like to talk about in church, ordered the slaughter of all the 2-year-olds and under based on the time the wise men gave him. And here's the thing nobody knows about this text or what's going on with it, is he ordered that of all the ones around Bethlehem because that's where the Magi told him Jesus was born. But did you hear in the text, where did they go to encounter Herod? That's right, Jerusalem. I heard it from over here somewhere. And so they went to Jerusalem. Bethlehem's another 60 miles away. And Nazareth is way further than that. So there's a chance that that slaughter didn't even affect the area where Jesus likely was. The biblical account is not clear on that, which means those Magi, those kings, were searching for Jesus based on the star. And we all have this mental picture because of our neat little nativity sets that he was still hanging out in the barn in Bethlehem, right? When not likely the case at all. There was a clue in the text. It said they went into the house and knelt down and opened their chests and worshipped him. Did you hear that this morning? They went into the house. Not the inn, not the stable, the house. So already there's some vague confusion about where are they? And I submit to you, it doesn't matter a lick where they were. It's easy to get caught in this little rabbit trail that I've taken you down and miss the real point. The point that these wise people, these Magi, were searching for Jesus. That's great. 2016 years ago, give or take. I know it's 2018. I did that on purpose. But what about us? What does this searching for Jesus mean for us today? This week, as God is fond of doing, I had yet another encounter to tell you a story about. It's amazing. I know part of it is just being more aware of what I'm going to be talking about on Sunday. I get that. But God has this funny, amazing way of giving me stories that fit. So this week, most of you know, or many of you know, some of you this could be a surprise. I also work very, very, very part-time, 20 hours a week for the Hershey Company. And I go and call on convenience stores and sell in their programs and stuff. And I had actually gotten to where I needed to be about 15, 20 minutes early one day last week. And I was a little hungry, and I thought, what the heck, it's a new year, I've been relatively good, and I haven't been hitting the candy samples too hard. I'm going to go have an Egg McMuffin. I do that about once every 2 weeks or so, just to, keep my diet all out of whack. And I had time, so I went in, which I almost never do. And I went in and I sat down and I'm munching away on my Egg McMuffin, looking at my planner for the day, figuring out where I'm going next and all those things. And I look up and there's a young woman in a McDonald's uniform, kind of in the most hidden corner of the restaurant, probably on break. She's not crying, she's kind of weepy, is the best way I can say it. And I kind of watched her. And then I tilted my head the other way and watched her. And I thought to myself, there's something big going on here. And then I thought to myself, being the good saintly pastor type that I am, God, I hope you help that, because I don't know the situation. And God said, not enough. Okay, I didn't hear a voice. But in my spirit, I was told, no, not enough. So I finished my Egg McMuffin, because they're really awful when they get cold, right? And it just so happened that the little trash receptacle was right by the little table she was at. So I said, as I threw away my trash, I said, pardon me, but I couldn't help noticing you look a little weepy. And I was just wondering, do you need a pastor? Because I happen to be one. She said, it's funny, I just kind of started going back to church, and so I've identified a pastor. And I was like, that's great. I still saw something in you, and my spirit said to me, I should encounter you. So would it be okay if I just promised to pray for you today? She flat out cried. The weeping was no longer weeping. And said, that would be fantastic. I said, something tells me I don't need to know what it is you need prayed for. She said, good, because I'd rather not tell you. And I said, I'm okay with that. God knows. And we left that little encounter. And I tell you that story because in that moment of slight weepiness that moved to full tears because God guided me, I found myself reflecting yet again on seeing or being aware of the Jesus in her. See, it's one thing to sit here at Epiphany and talk about our kings, seeking the King of Kings and all those things, and that's great. But what we really need to be searching for is that moment of Jesus in others, where the piece of Jesus in us can connect. Christians, we are called to touch lives. We are not called to just be or act saintly or feel pious. We are called to reach people. We're called to touch people. We're called to care about people. And so, my challenge for you in this Epiphany Sunday is to search. Search for those Jesus moments. Search for those chances to be Jesus. To be the hands and feet of Christ. To be the arms that hug. The eyes that see. The person that's just willing to pray. The person that's willing to remind that other person that God hasn't quit on them and isn't going to. Now the astute among you are saying, that's great, Rick, but where will I find these people? That's great that you asked, because I have some suggestions, and it's not the easy ones. It's easy to say the homeless. And if you haven't searched it or it hasn't popped up on your Facebook feed, there is a fabulous video about a guy that's using Amazon Prime delivery in like New York, where he encounters a homeless person and says, what do you need? And the guy's like, socks and shoes. So he orders socks and shoes and puts special instructions in the Prime delivery. Talk to Jack right outside this address, sees the homeless guy, and give him the shoes. And so he bought them for, because you're not going to hear this guy, go to the store, get the stuff, come back. But Amazon will take it to you, take it to him for you. It's great. It's a great video. But what if you're in a hospital waiting? What if you're in a hospital waiting room this week? And while you need prayer, maybe there's someone else that does too, and you can share it together. What if you find yourself in the courts building? You know, as church people, we all want to connect to the maternity ward. But what about the divorce court? What about the bankruptcy proceedings? What about those down moments in life when things seem to be at their worst? What about the cancer ward instead of the maternity ward? Where people need to hear and see the face of Christ. If you search for Jesus. How did Jesus say it? When you do this unto the least of these, you do it unto me. When you search for Jesus, you will find him. My challenge for you this week, church, is when you find him, will you respond to him? May God make it so. Amen.